Welcome, welcome everyone to the Prophecy Update. And if you're home, I pray you're being warmed and just the warmth of the Lord and those type of things. So anybody in here, again, feel free, get some food. And you're welcome to eat in here. You're welcome to drink coffee. It's an interesting time that we're living in. And the title of all my prophecy updates start with, what in the world is going on? I believe the Lord's going to speak to us and show us some neat things. And at the end, one of my points always, just to get fired up, just to, I believe the Church of America has fallen asleep. I believe that a slumber has come upon the people, and God gives us prophecy for the very point, to wake us up, to stir us up, to keep us on sight, eyes on focus of what is before us. And so we go over these same 14 points. I usually find myself in the front end really kind of slowed down, and so I'm going to try to do a better balance for us. But at the end, do this for about 45 minutes. Then at the end, we're going to open it up to just do a round table. People can talk about whatever they want to talk about, bring up, discuss what you're thinking, and then also question and answer, kind of merge round table and question and answer, because then many times question and answer spurs off a good round table. But anything you want to talk about, anything you want to talk about this morning's message and how that applies and what we think about the things that we see around us today. So our first point is Jerusalem, Israel, Jerusalem, and the Middle East. So, Father, I thank you that you've given us eyes to see what is before us in the days that we live in, Lord, so that we can be busy about the King's business, that we can stay on point and focus. And, Lord, as I look at the world around us, I see how distracted they are and how even the church, how divided it is. Lord, I pray, by the Spirit of the living God, fall fresh here today. Stir us up. Get us excited about what you're doing. Keep us on point, Lord, and keep us in the place of seeking first the kingdom of God and your righteousness. Then we can be sure your word will come true, that all these things will be added unto us. All right, so Israel, Jerusalem, the Middle East. First up, always get there. Isaiah 66, verse 8, I can always just start here and end here, that the prophecy, shall a nation be born in a day. The only nation for 2,000 years without a homeland, the nation of Israel, born in a day, May 14th, 1948. And so that prophecy before us. And then we're told there in Ezekiel 36 that I'm going to gather the nations back in the last days. You would think the last time or timing that people would want to be moving and coming somewhere would be in these past 2 years. But as we studied, coronavirus drove more U.S. Jews home to Israel than like any other year. But here we are with this month's report. Immigration to Israel surges in 2021 by 30%. Ezekiel 36 is coming before our very eyes. And so then when we talk about Ezekiel 38 and 39, you can be sure that's going to come before us too. And then we always look at the European superstate, the Antichrist, 7-year peace. Encourage anybody that missed the prophecy update of vitalness that we talked about, the Antichrist and his command and what he will demand of all people. And we'll talk about that in point 11, the taking of the mark. But a super leader, so-called, is going to come, and I'm going to talk more about him when I get down to the mark of the beast. So I'll hold that off, but we look through the scriptures of Revelation 13 and Daniel 7 and Daniel 9, and there's going to be a revived Roman Empire, and here's what we see. The European Union, its map is almost identical to the revived Roman Empire at its zenith in the days of its pinnacle some 2,000 years ago. So prophecy confirmed. And here's what we continue living in. Point 3, earthquakes, famine, pestilence, and wars. Just as Jesus said in Matthew 24. Matt. Oh, Jeff's gone. Oh boy, delayed. Something got in the way. Take me into the Holy of Holies. Uh-oh. What is the chances of that? What is the chances that we would have a technical difficulty with the technology and the demonic realm? Back one, back one, back one, back one, forward one. As we always say, oh, wow, has the world changed overnight? This is last month's slide. And I just want to make the point, 278,000 confirmed cases, so they call. They're not counting home kits now and things like that. The 28-day total was 200,000, and the 28-day case count was close to 18,000. Here we are to this month, huge 4-time increase in 1 month for case count. But the death toll, thankfully, was 400% increase on cases, but only a 10%. Do you see the math of that? 4 times more, yet the death toll wasn't in step with that. And so that is a great praise request. But you know what we see? And the president would say it, the vice president would say it, the CDC would say it, the world leaders would say it. We didn't see it coming. That's a pretty amazing statement. With all that we got, that they can still come to. We didn't see it coming. So we see this world changing, and as we spoke this morning and continually in prophecy updates, violence upon the earth, and the greatest violence upon the earth is in the womb of the woman in America. Versus 60 million babies aborted in USA since Roe versus Wade, 42 million abortions in 1 year. So before this study is over, 4,800 abortions will have taken place on that. But you know what? We may be the generation. All the praying, it is a time of fasting and prayer. This is our time. And we need to pray and vote, if you would, for who the next Supreme Court justice will be, who's coming in as things change quickly in the world that we live in. But I want to make a point, speaking of wars and rumors of war, we may see war before February's over. I kind of lean that this probably isn't going to happen in February. And what I'm talking about is Russia and the Ukraine. Putin had already taken Crimea back in 2014. Nobody said anything. The world kind of goes, hey, don't do that, but no one stepped in. President Biden warned Putin, and the U.S. and its allies will respond decisively if Russia invades the Ukraine. But you can see my next slide there. U.S. to gift $308 million in aid to Taliban-run Afghanistan. So we have these Taliban ruthless murderers, oppressors, Islamic fundamentalists, killing Christians. If you didn't get the Calvary magazine, the latest one, please grab that. Please read the article about Afghanistan and see what Far-Reaching Ministries is doing. It's literally going in. There's thousands of Americans and Christians that are still left behind. And but this governing authority under President Biden is going to give them $308 million to do what? To continue on their ruthlessness, extreme oppression, and especially against our brothers and sisters. So points of prayer. Will the United States do anything? I doubt. Why did I say I don't think we'll see it? Because I don't think President Putin's going to want to upset the president of China right now because of the Olympics. A war would be a total distraction. President of China saying, this is my stage, this is my moment, which, by the way, you talk about oppressiveness. They're locking, anybody who lives in the town where the Olympics are, you're locked in. They're shutting them in. And you can go out to get food, but everybody goes back because they don't want this blight, black eye, so they would see that coronavirus is moving through the Olympics in any way. So their citizens are being in lockdown. But I don't think that Putin would do his offense right now because he doesn't want to make that damage with his relationship with the president of China. So what happens after, we don't know. But of course, this can very well be a push by Putin to mass troops to get the world to then come alongside and, release funds and aid and these type of things. And it's free, it's free money because the world, like Biden, okay, we'll just give you money to hopefully keep stability. It doesn't work that way. And when we get to the Magog invasion, it's proof. What I'm saying right now will be proven by the scripture that President Putin will come down upon Israel at a time of peace. He's coming. And so any aid that we're giving only builds up his military to that day that will come against the nation of Israel. The top general just yesterday or the day before says, Biden says he'll move troops to Eastern Europe as the top general warns of horrific outcome if Russia invades Ukraine. It's not a threat from the United States to them, but it's just this will be more horrible than you can imagine if you do this. So we could see possibly one of the bloodiest wars since World War II, and we could also possibly see the world breaking into, even a world war. So how fascinating the days that we live and the times that we're in. So as the world's in upheaval, in pestilence and wars and famines and these type of things, there's going to rise this one world government. It's going to be led by this revived Roman Empire, by this Antichrist, but the whole world's going to be looking for a fix-it man. They're going to be looking for this one world government, and then out of it will come a one world religion, and that false prophet will point to the Antichrist, and there will come a day, as we studied, and when we get to the mark of the beast, basically as we studied this morning, it's going to be a place where the command is, Hail Caesar. The king of this revived Roman Empire. Everybody's going to either hail him or be put to death. And so that comes out. That's Revelation 13, Revelation 17. The world is primed for help us. And Omicron came through in December and did its thing and brought many of the world leaders back into control. And the people need us. We're going to make these mandates. Hey, look, I'm not making a case for civil disobedience. I don't teach. I don't teach for or against a vaccine. I definitely believe anybody who's going to get a vaccine or not get a vaccine should pray about it and seek the Lord about it. And so my job as a pastor is not to, and the government would have me try to encourage people to get a vaccine. I just don't. That's not the role of the pastor. He's to teach the Word of God. But it's delusional in many ways. But it should be criminal. No role for cloth's mask anymore, experts say. Omicron too transmissible for lackluster mask. So the governing authorities, and I'm not making a statement here, I believe, submitting to the governing authorities, but they're making a mask mandate and put a mask on. But it's confirmed that these cloth masks or everyday masks is not enough to stop the transmission. But if you put a mask on, then we feel like we're doing something. And look at this. If you test positive, you're to isolate for 5 days. If you have no symptoms or symptoms resolving after 5 days, you can leave isolation but wear a mask. So you can have COVID, put on a cheap mask or ill-fitting mask or whatever it is, and go out, and what they've already said doesn't work, and spread COVID. It's totally a counterintuitive that they're putting here. It's almost, to me, like I said, it's criminal. If you really believe what you believe, this totally defies what you're trying to do. And so they say that it's based on science, but they're countering themselves in the science. What's the point? It's not to make a big statement about mask and science. What the point is, do something. Make the people think like we're in control, that we have some answer. Even when you cross-examine their answer, it's illogical, it's unscientific. You say everything's based on science, but if you read very clearly, 10 days, you were possible to be contagious after you had COVID for 10 days. But now, based on science, we say it's 5 days. But you wear a mask that we confirm can do nothing, but anyways, put a mask on. Do you know why they went from 10 to 5? They entered a little new line this month called behavioral science. Behavioral science is not science. It's not biology, it's not physics, it's not genetics or anything like that. The behavioral science, they say, this is based on what we think the people can endure. 10 was too long, so we go to 5. So they're willing, and here's the point, we're willing to take a risk. And so we're willing to take a risk on people's lives, but they won't come out and say that. So when they come out, and so there's this place of the power of the government trying to be overarching and put people to, tell us what to do and we'll do it. And we're witnessing it. We're watching people, even when it's something as counter logic as we see here. Rand Paul, Fauci responsible for thousands of COVID deaths due to de-emphasizing therapeutics. So we've been saying this for months. No one disagrees that COVID's real, and a lot of this church can attest to that it's real. But what we see is it's continual. Vaccine. Even though when Omicron came, I don't ask people what their status is, but when people talk to me, I can tell you 50% of the people who told me I'm vaccinated and I got Omicron. The other 50% said I'm not vaccinated, I got Omicron. And it was almost a wash on the symptoms, mild, etc. But the point that we make over and over, why isn't the governing authority spending billions of dollars for therapy? Why isn't that the biggest push? That if you get COVID, here's a whatever it may be, monoclonal, here's some prescription that we made that knocks this out. They just continually be slow, because I believe it's a place, because the vaccine becomes more powerful by the demand and the command that we see, rather than saying, if you get it, we got something. Baltimore County up the road blames unvaccinated for mask mandate. People selfishly choosing not to get shot. Maryland County School, Prince George, more specific, CEO suggests students will be required to wear masks until COVID no longer exists. Well, if your kid's in 6th grade, they'll be walking down their graduation with a mask on. We will live with this just like we live with the flu and the cold. What we see, though, and the point that I make is there's this unvaccinated, and you're going to see this theme over and over, and it's coming out of the government, it's coming out of the president, it's starting, and it was our message this morning very much, it's a dividing of the people. We divided against our countrymen, and then it's a dividing inside the church of, see if these people would get vaccinated. Even though, as I said, how about if we go and do something about the therapy? So if you do get COVID, there it is. Oh, we have it. It's coming. Some of the people that we know have benefited from it, but there's just not enough of it. Why isn't that? Why wasn't that such a big push like the vaccine? But still, we keep talking vaccine, mask. Well, there's going to be a one world religion. This is last month's slide, but I bring it up again there in the United Arab, UAE, right? Abu Dhabi is a one world religion headquarters set to open very soon this year. And the Pope of Catholicism, 1.2 billion people, and the head imam of Islam, about 1 billion people. We're talking about 33% of the world's population came together to make this one stop. Christian, Jewish, and Islam, and you can come here and it's going to be all interfaith. Man, we used to see it before our very eyes, and the fact that it's being built, that's our lifetime. This is our day. Well, iniquity, sin will abound. 2 Timothy, people become lovers of themselves, disobeying parents, grateful for nothing. Homosexuality will increase. People would be without self-control in sex. People would love pleasure more than God. And as we study those things and we see those things, but the target of these things now is very much the youth generation. And so Superman comes out, a teenage Superman in the Marvel comic books, he's going to come out as bisexual. Why has he got to be anything? Why can't he just be Superman? Why can't he just be Superman? Why does Superman have to have some sexual relationship? But we see a drip and a drip. And this, ending last month, was TikTok videos about transgenderism boast 26 billion, not million, views. How many times is 26 billion? Who's watching it? How many people have access to it? There's the drip and the drip and the drip, and that the kids see it, and then it just becomes neutralized. It's no longer offense. It's no longer something. It just becomes common, and the goal, acceptable. I talked about this last week. I talked about it this week in a way, talking about Canada. 4,000 pastors unite against Canada's new LGBT conversion therapy law, warn it will criminalize Christianity. And a pastor in California preached a message on gender identity 2 weeks ago, and his sermon was pulled down and it was banned as hate speech. This is in America, but this is what we see is happening in Canada. And what we see here is they're silencing the voice of the church, and they have a goal, and it's a godless goal, and you have to silence the Christian voice so that you can have this one world religion and put people under the power. But also there just comes this place, as we talked this morning, and you also got to tear down the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States is under attack. This is USA Today. What's my date? January 10th, 2 weeks ago. Why would this even get published? It's an article, what the public keeps getting wrong about pedophiles. Why would that even what could we possibly get wrong about pedophiles? Other than it's a sin against God, it's a crime and offense against children. And yet there's an article that goes on. It's kind of what they want to do. We've been saying this for over a decade. They want to bring it that it's misunderstanding, or it's how they were born, and it comes to this place that it's not a sin. It comes into this is how they were created. And we've said this is how it would go. We said it would go from marriage, then it would break down marriage. It would go into breaking down marriage. Then it would cross over into the place of homosexuality. Then it would cross over into the gender identity. And then it would come to this, that what the public keeps getting wrong about pedophilia. Well, the apostasy and great deception. Some would depart from the faith. False teachers will arise. People would mock about the last days. What we see here, we definitely know, is many of the churches are afraid to teach the word. They're afraid to call sin, sin, and they want to give itching ears, just as we've seen that 2 Timothy, that's how it would go. But we continually see what's professed as a Christian nation, the swinging of professing Christians into things that are totally unbiblical. And here you see LGBT artist, so-and-so, Christian band, Reliant K's upcoming, joining Christian band Reliant K's upcoming. I don't know about you guys, but I remember Reliant K for years and years and years as a Christian. And now somehow along the way, they're going to have a gay performer open for them. It's to be acceptable. It's to connect. We don't judge you where you're at. No one's here to judge. We're here to save and rescue. We're the pillar and ground of truth. And that's what we want to do, is rescue people. We're not here to judge them or hate them. And I said this last month, and that there's going to be this metaverse, and people will not go to church. Christians, regardless, Hebrews 10, to not forsake the assembly. So you can put on this, what are they called? I called them cartoon people and one of the teenagers. Avatar. One of the teenagers like, you're so uncool. And avatar. So you become an avatar, and then you go to church and you put these goggles on, and people think, hey, we're reaching the, we like to call it the unchurched. I believe what many of the churches now are doing, and COVID was a great entryway into this, we're creating the unchurched. We're creating the unchurched that we're promoting for people to stay home and not fellowship among the brethren. Not be faced with someone to go, hey man, how are you doing? Hey man, can I pray with you? Hey, what's going on in your life? To be able to look in someone's eyes and minister to them and talk to them and hold them accountable. And so people heading in that direction. And we talked about Facebook saying that, one day they'll host a virtual reality church service, and Facebook renamed itself Meta to go for Metaverse. Fortnite said it's a multi-trillion-dollar business, so where the money is, that it shall be. And now Microsoft sets its sight this month on Metaverse. They're going to throw in like $100 million, or they're going to throw in all this money to start their version of the Metaverse. So now you got the majors doing this to bring to the unchurched. We're going to create the unchurched. So knowledge shall increase, Daniel 12, and we hold it in our hand. We talk about this all the time. Revelation 11, that in the last days, this great knowledge, and the world's all wired together. And we talk about the power in our phones, and they had, this is good knowledge increase, they took a pig's heart and transplanted it into a man who needed a heart, and he lived. That's amazing. And we're just seeing incredible knowledge increasing. Well, there's going to be the Magog invasion. Ezekiel 38, and just as I said, Ezekiel 36, God regathering the people to the nation. Therefore, that's confirmed before us as we're watching a 30% increase from in 2021 from the year before. People are coming back. Well, so too Ezekiel 38. Russia, Iran, Turkey, they're going to come down from the north, and the world's going to look and say, don't do it. And yet we see them forming. And again, I always say, that's my picture. I took it. I'm 10 miles from a Russian military compound there in Syria. And now with the movement and the pressing, Putin's putting his foot in everywhere he can get in, and he's well established in Syria. So 10 miles to invade Israel, it's a short walk. So the Magog invasion, Russia's on the rise. I just said, Russia planning massive military offensive against Ukraine involving upwards of 175,000 troops. Putin warns NATO not to deploy troops or weapons. So here we go. Oh, wow, what a situation that we could find ourselves in as a nation, brought into something that our president is the one who's going to navigate and lead us into or out of. That's pretty scary with the way Afghanistan was handled. Just imagine if Putin just takes Ukraine. And here's what's power. Russia, the devil, he wants a revived Soviet empire. The devil, Iran, he wants a revived Medo-Persian empire. Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. We're watching them. They want to come back to their glory days because all of them will be under the influence. They're not the Antichrist, but they're little Christ. And he is working to build his empire. And we'll talk about the Babylon here in a minute. But the point that I make, America will be held for this. President Biden stood down the Keystone Pipeline, reduced the fuel, gas, oil into the United States. So guess where we have to go spend more money? We're getting oil from Russia. We're empowering Russia because of this green initiative and wanting to protect the environment. You can protect the environment all day, but then when an evil tyrant like Putin stands on your door, what do you do about that? He's got hypersonic weapons that he's smoking. He has a bomb called Satan that if it gets detonated in D.C., it will wipe us out to boot. They don't have a means to deliver something that big right now, but anyways. Then the temple will be rebuilt. And so we talk about this. Matthew 24, Daniel 9. This Antichrist will walk in, and he will declare himself God, and everybody will be, Hail Caesar. And if you don't hail Caesar, mark of the beast coming up, you will be put to death. And so there we see this place, man, governing authority, telling people what to do, and it's primed, it's staging for people to just go, Hail Caesar, this Antichrist. He's going to go into the rebuilt temple at the midway point. And we're seeing all the pieces come together for this rebuilt temple. First time in my lifetime, Jewish and Christian can now go up to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. We were allowed as tourists, but we weren't allowed to do anything such as pray, worship, or teach the Bible. We spoke of the Bible, though. We did. But the UN, this shows how much the world hates Israel. This month, the UN, 120 nations ignore Jewish ties to the Temple Mount. They call it solely Muslims. UN passes controversial resolution calling Temple Mount only by its Muslim name, which is Haram al-Sharif. As I say, I don't think I have a slide, but here's the point. The devil wants to remove any connection back to Jerusalem because what happened 2,000 years ago. God came down, became man, walked this perfect sinless life, climbed across right outside that temple when the Passover sacrifice and said, it's done. And death will pass over if you will receive me as Lord and Savior. That's why the world, inspired by the devil himself, removed the connection to the identity of Israel and remove this connection to the temple where the sacrifice would be made. And 129, I think the vote was 129-3 or something. That's how bad it was. Again, one world religion coming in Abu Dhabi there. Where's America? No slides, no mention. But as I spoke of this morning, as I see, America is being divided systematically, piece by piece, masterfully, and the church is stepping into it. The church is dividing itself. The church is no longer united, as we say. The government is shaping the church. Government tell us what to do instead of the church shaping the government. We're the pillar and ground of truth. We're going to speak the truth. No, we don't agree with this abortion. No, we don't agree with these things that tear down or come against the gospel of Jesus Christ. Over a third of Republicans don't want the COVID vaccine. That's why President Biden pushes the vaccine so hard. It causes this division. The vaccine is now one of the biggest polarizing things of the United States, even though it caused a 4-fold increase Omicron last month, but half of those people were vaccinated. They love to make the statement, the majority of the people. And you know what a majority is? We all know math. The majority is 51%. President Biden won the majority by like 1 or 2%. Majority, when you talk of science, should be in the 90s. And so we see how it's being used. And Biden stands by everything he said in fiery Georgia speech that compared opponents to segregation. Now it's into the voting right. And there's this continual, and I got another slide next, of trying to associate conservatives, and they don't have to be born again conservative, just anybody who's conservative, trying to associate them with lawlessness, trying to associate them with ignorance, and trying to associate them with conspiracies or whatever it may be. And so anybody who comes against that we want any type of reform in voting, you're a segregist. You're trying to put Jim Crow laws back in and keep all races from voting. And it's not even close, but that's the majority to classify and put what's happening here. You know, I went to Bible college with him. He's still, this is December 16th, he's still pastor there in Mike in California. He's still faced with $2.8 million in fines. Everybody else is getting relieved or constitutional or Supreme Court or circuit judge turnover, these type of things. San Jose is still coming after them saying, you owe $2.8 million. Well, you know who San Jose is? I say it all the time. It's the thing, they call it. They control with their phone Facebook, Google, Microsoft, all these with the thing. They control what the narrative is. And so those people in San Jose, they're not going to let this rest. They want to keep that pressure because they want the church to be silenced. They want the church. He says, we obey God over man. They said, you can't sing. He goes, we obey God over man. They came in, if you sing, we're going to fine you. So they fined him. You come in without a mask, we're going to fine you. Everything along the way. And they wouldn't stop. They come into the children's church. They come into the children's school during the week. And it was just pressure against pressure against pressure because they want churches to say, man, it's just too much. This is too much for me. They threatened to take his house. They threatened to throw him in jail because they said that they can push this all the way out to him personally as a representative. That's a pretty hard thing to come home and tell your wife. This is where this all may be going. But praise God, still standing. So as I said, over a third of the Republicans don't want the COVID vaccine. So it polarizes them to put them in a place that you're evil or you're un-American. What's the saying? How'd it go? You don't just love your country when you win. That was this Biden statement. So Trump, you lost, and you can't just love your country, so you say, because you win. Well, I think we're seeing across the board that even when they lose anybody, even today, then we're going to go and push against you. Biden administration, how about this? To list employees seeking religious exemptions to vaccine mandates in a database. Every one of you who got a religious exemption, he wants a database to know who you are. Why? Why? What justification is there? Why? It's scary. It's scary that the government would want a database such as that. Biden says Trump and his backers place a dagger in the throat of democracy. Inside Biden's fiery speech and his decision to confront Trump's danger head on. This is the January 6th speech. It's a correlation, and I'm not going to say raise your hand because I don't want you to. But anybody who was down at the Capitol on January 6th is put in this place. Anyone associated with the March for Freedom, anyone associated with being there January 6th, 2021, gets thrown in this group of unpatriotic, insurrectionist, DOJ, Department of Justice, creating unit focused on domestic terrorism amidst spike in threat. Our own homeland is putting together a group that is to go after what's called domestic terrorists. So who gets to define what a domestic terrorist is? Right now it's President Biden. It's a scary place to be as he makes a database on everybody with a religious exemption. 725, I believe it's 772 today. 725 arrested, 165 plead guilty to federal January 6 charges, Department of Justice said. Do you know how many people were down there? No one counted. No one could count. Everybody will go anywhere. Oh, hundreds of thousands. Some put it into millions. And only 772 ended up getting arrested. Yet they paint the whole march as insurrectionist. The filming is all of these people are insurrectionists. 772 is what eventually was arrested. Some of them were 70-year-old grandmothers. It was like a tale of two cities. One side was bashing walls and total chaos. That was riot. The other side, there's pictures of Capitol Police, so-called insurrectionists. They're walking in and they're staying within the lines of the ropes. And they go through the Capitol just like I did when I did, but I had a pass from the congressman to allow me in. And I walked and I stayed within the ropes. I saw the awesome stuff and I left. And so that's what they did. They came in, they walked, there's pictures of them. And yet they're one of the 772 that got arrested for trespassing. There's this painting picture that is polarizing, and anything that even looks like conservatism turns into this place that it is what they would call insurrectionist. It's a dividing to divide the nation. That's a lot of people right there. I can't count, but I'm going to go no less than 1 million, and yet only 772 ended up being arrested so far. But they got their terrorist domestic force that's looking for more. Where's America? We might run out of money. We're cranking it up pretty good. Just to give you some good news, next year your medical insurance is going to go up because the government can't fund all these tests for COVID. So now they're making the insurers cover them. So that's U.S. insurers must cover 8 at-home COVID tests per person monthly. These things are running like $20-$40. Some of them are coming out of China. Give me 8 per. I mean, so if you get yourself and you want to be, I get tested, I can go to work. You're going to go to work, but your insurance company is going to hit you up hard because they're like 8 per person per month. I'm promising 72. I'm running up to $1,500 per person for COVID testing. They ain't going to pay it. We'll pay it. Inflation rises to 7% in December. It's the highest in 4 decades. Canada Province of Quebec says tax coming for unvaccinated. As I said this morning, we're not that far from Canada. We can make it before nightfall to get up to the border right now, but we can see a tax coming if you're unvaccinated. It divides people, polarizing, but then again, it also brings this financial hardship that's trying to force people, and that's what's a setup for the mark of the beast. Well, America has got to be on lookout because North Korea is rising up, man. They launched 5 or 6 hypersonic missiles in the last month, and Kim Jong-un is making the statement, we can hit you. So he's making the statement of, we can hit you with our hypersonic. The thing about hypersonic, it's not your typical trajectory. It comes and then it's able to fly like this. So we base all of our targeting and destruction on things that have a common flight path. And then our modeling and simulation says this is this type of rocket, has this type of engine, therefore it has to traject like this. We can intercept here. But when you get hypersonic and it's going like this, there is no trajectory, there is no pinpoint. And so we're behind in this hypersonic world, whether creating them or defending against them. But Korea spent a lot of money to rise it up. And again, it's kind of like Putin. I'm going to rise it up, so you either have to give me some money now, like you're giving the Taliban, and lift some sanctions, or we'll just keep building these things and make you live in fear. So the mark of the beast, this is what's kind of fascinating to me as I look at this. Revelation 13, Hail Caesar, take the mark of allegiance, in your chip, in your wallet, eventually in your hand, on your forehead, whatever it may be. Right now, it's on my phone and in my wallet. COVID passports, many people jumping on it. Yeah, just put that chip underneath me, then I don't have to carry this card. There's places continually, you can't eat here, you can't work here if you don't have a COVID passport. And then you got to go and get chipped. And people are like, oh man, that's way easier than carrying this card. It could get wet and whatever it may be. So we're seeing that being used. But wow, you talk about knowledge increasing and bringing in to how it would tie into the mark of the beast. Elon Musk, I mean, if somebody can do it, this guy seems to be the one. He hopes to start implanting these chips, Neuralink, into humans in 2022. And the Neuralink's going to help with some neurological damages, but then it will morph itself out into what is considered possibly, super intelligence, however this may be. I believe it can happen, without a doubt. If you want your tax refund, here's what's coming. We talked about this months ago. The IRS website will soon require facial recognition to log on to your account. So Biden is building up a database of domestic terrorists. I mean, he's building up a database on people who seek religious exemption. And now if you want your money, your face is going to be in that database. And anybody that knows database, it's not too hard to tie them together. And facial recognition then goes all around the world, all around the country. We don't know how many times our face is on the camera today. And so there's this place that your face gets, there he is, he's in Pasadena, just left the Royals farm or whatever it may be. And so interesting as we see these things coming together, facial recognition or mark. But here's what's so amazing to me. And it's just been such a setup as the world has been, neutralized and numb to this, the vaccine. I'm not speaking against it. I'm not speaking for it. But look at this. Could mRNA make us superhuman? This technology is like no other technology. And people go, it's new technology. It's not. It's 40, 50 years old. This is not new technology. What's new is how to produce it and deliver it. And no one's ever had billions, plural, pumped and overloaded to them to go figure out how to do it. And that's what happened for COVID. Billions. Usually these companies were getting 20, maybe 100 million on a big contract. Now, hundreds of millions. Figure out how to deliver this messenger RNA, and all it does, supposedly, right, is it sends a message into your body. It doesn't change your DNA, but it sends a message into your body and say, this little spike, when you see it, attack it. So it doesn't put COVID in your body, it puts the little protein spike that you see. That's not COVID. COVID's the core. But when it goes into your body, the vaccine tells it, that's not good, seek and destroy, and then get rid of it. And so that's what a messenger RNA is to do. Well, it's only fitting then that we would build off of this new technology. Right now, it doesn't change your DNA. But what is gene editing and how could it be used to rewrite the code of life? I just want you to play something and think it through. How mRNA and DNA vaccines could soon treat cancer, HIV, autoimmune disorder, and genetic diseases. They're already working that the technology to go into the human DNA, alter it, and fix deficiencies. Right now, what you see here, CRISPR study is first to change DNA. We have something that actually changes who you are, how God created you. And they're using this right now. They went in and they were able to change the DNA on a person with a portion of blindness, to change their DNA to fix the deficiency in their sight. This is all great. This is all great. Knowledge shall increase. And I'm not against it, except here's my concern. Got HIV, go in and change the DNA, you get to live again. You got cancer, go in, change the DNA, gets the cancer out of your body. You're blind, go in, change the DNA, you can see again. What if you could go in and change the DNA and say, I can make you taller. I can make you blonde. I can make you a brunette. I can make you more of this, less of that. I could give you more intelligence. I can make you superhuman or super great athlete. How many people, especially after the precursor for 2 years, vaccine, when they're offered, we can change your DNA. You don't have to be like how God created you. I'm going to give you a power to overcome this fallen world, though they won't say it. I can go in and change you. And when he stood Jesus on the mount in Matthew 4. Bow down to me, and I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. How many people, when this comes, the Antichrist will say, God doesn't love you. Oh, he's real, but he doesn't love you. He is allowing you to be blind, or he's letting you live with this cancer, or you wish you were more beautiful, or whatever it may be. I'll give you your heart's desire. Matthew 4, if you only bow down to me. This is fascinating. This, to me, is the ultimate precursor to everything that we're seeing with the vaccine. So again, we find ourselves, people go, should I not have a chip in my wallet? I go, man, I'm using the internet to preach the gospel. We're sending the gospel through the internet. We're using, well, should we be on this platform? I said, we're using that to reach people. How about where we buy things? I said, man, we're using that we're saving more money because we use this or we use that. And this is where I go, could I ever come and say to somebody, man, don't get that DNA adjustment so that you can see again. I'd be like, this is the greatest thing. I paid $10,000. I paid $5,000. My brother paid $10,000. I paid $5,000 20 years ago to have someone cut my eyes so that I could go back to 2020. And I was glad to do it. Radiokeratotomy, I thought was the greatest technology in the world. And here I am 20 years later, still benefiting from it. My point is, technology is great in all that we use, but there comes a day that drip after drip and twist after twist, that it's literally going to come. Hail Caesar. Bow down and worship me or not. And how many people, especially today, in our looks culture and all these type of things will say, I'll do it. If that's what gets me what I want, to be beautiful or super athlete or whatever, super intelligent. Well, Babylon, the world headquarters, going to come. My point that I make about this week, Revelation 14, Revelation 18, is Babylon will be a world headquarters. He will, the Antichrist, use it as a headquarters for one of his places that he'll work out of. Saddam's gone, and so everything's good to go for this that in our day. And I just put up there Babylon, Genesis 11, Daniel 3. Satan's going to finish what he started. We're going to build up. We don't need God. We'll be our own gods, and we're going to build up into that. This is so weird, though. This is United Nations in New York. Can you see that? Why would anybody put this statue anywhere? And yet this statue, what is that? Looks like some demonic being. And it's up in the United Nations headquarters in New York. Strange, very strange. There's going to be a battle of Armageddon. Jesus wins, but we're watching the rise of the East come up. And China can build their army. No one's done better with COVID and building their military than China because of all the stuff that's bought in China. And as I say, the good news is Jesus wins, and we're going to be out of here soon and very soon. So I want to just turn it over right now and go into anything that I discussed, anything this morning, anything you want to discuss. Round table, what have you read?